What's good, my menace society? It is your host with the most, Shadow Look, back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and are subscribed to the channel. It's absolutely free. That is how you help my channel get into the algorithm. I would highly appreciate if you go ahead and do that. Now, I was asked by one of my subscribers that, what does the word cholo actually mean? Now, I know that you'll get people in the comments that are going to come and try to spin their own narrative to stuff, like always, right? Kind of like when I made that videos about saying what flats means, and people still can't get it through their heads and think it means first local at the street, which is stupid. But I'm just giving you what we know as the word to mean and where it comes from. So the word cholo is actually a Spanish American 18th century term. It has, now keep in mind that it was always a slang term, right? So basically, a cholo was somebody that they what people used to call to describe somebody in a negative way, so in a bad way, right? So it was kind of a you didn't want to be called a cholo, pretty much, you know. It was somebody that you called that was mixed blood, that had mixed blood, right? So they're not fully of, whether Spanish, or let's just say they're not fully American, so they're mixed, right? So people with mixed heritage would were, well, at least when you wanted to offend them, you would call them, that they were cholos, right? And as time goes by, right, and the word, being used, and long periods of time passing by, the word in itself, starts to take a different life and form of its own, right? And cholo's not the only word that has actually happened to, right? There's several other, words that used to mean one thing and now it means something completely different, right? So it was somebody of mixed, blood. That's what they would, to disrespect them, call them cholos. Now you can see why it ended up landing in the Mexican, Chicano culture, right? Considering the fact that, Chicanos are not seen as real Mexicans in Mexico by real people that are born in Mexico, right? They're seen as, fakes, or, wannabes, or, not truly, Mexican Americans are not seen as truly, full Mexicans, right? So when you would have these gang members that were getting deported to Mexico, right? People would refer to these individuals as cholos, like an insult, right? Not a true Mexican, he's just cholo, right? And then people embrace the word cholo, and since these individuals that were gangster were the ones being called cholos, people think that now the word cholo means gangster, but it really doesn't mean that. But um, as time goes by and people embracing it and running with it, that is what it means now. You get what I'm saying? Kind of like, for example, the N word, right? People used to say the N word to dehumanize African Americans, right? But now these individuals embraced it and now call each other, the N word, but they don't mean it in the sense that they're trying to disrespect each other. You get what I'm saying? So you kind of see it like that, right? They took what the word meant, and and now it means something else, at least in their culture, right? Same with the Hispanic culture, right? It's a disrespectful term, but now these individuals embraced it, and now in the Chicano culture is seen as a gangster. But originally, that's not really what it was, though. But that is where it comes from Spanish, from the Spanish Americans, from the Spanish Americas, from the 18th century. So, and it was always a slang term, so it was a disrespectful term. But overall, this is a quick one. Now, if you want to know more about it, on my other channel, I did a whole long ass video going into everything, with the whole cholo word and all of that, right? If you guys want to scope that out, but just for answering my subscribers' question, on a quick video, that's what the term means now. It means, at least in the Chicano culture, it means a gang member from a gang, but the origins of the word is something else. But what are your thoughts? Leave it in the comments. I'm Shadow. We out.